Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Cardinals, your daily Arizona Cardinals podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Cardinals. Alex, Clancy, Bo Brack. Exciting times here for the Arizona Cardinals. Come Monday, we will do our true opening. I guess you could call this a soft opening, Bo, after the Sun season ended a couple days ago. Follow Bo and Bob Brack. Follow me at Clancy's Corner. Follow the podcast and Locked On AZ Cards. Thank you to everybody who is subscribing on YouTube. We were under 200 subscribers as of yesterday. We are now about 20 more than we were. So, Bo, things are moving. Go check out the one that Bo did solo last week, and that's the biggest hit so far. I'm assuming, it's because I wasn't there. Let's just take the wind out of the sails so Bo doesn't have to. But good things are coming. Appreciate everybody who listens. We've got an interesting show today. This was pretty much Bo's idea. He put out on his Twitter at Bob Brack, BOBRACK, his expectations, his projections for the rookies this year, the full rookie class from round 1 to round 7. And I'm going to give mine. We're going to compare notes. We're going to hit Zaven Collins first. We're going to hit Tay Gowan, Marco Wilson first segment. And then we're going to pivot to Rondale Moore and the later round picks in the second segment. And then throw it on Thursday, which rookie needs to have the biggest impact. Not will have the biggest impact, needs to have the biggest impact in an effort to get the Cardinals a bump in the win column. This episode of Locked On Cardinals is brought to you by Locked On Fantasy Football. Winning your league starts with the right data. Vinny Iyer of the Sporting News provides you the edge. I mean, this is what he does. A podcast a day, year-round for fantasy football. Go check out Vinny Iyer on the Locked On Fantasy Football podcast. Okay, so Bo put out his projections at Bo Brack on Twitter for the rookie class this year. Zaven Collins, obviously all eyes on him. 16th overall pick. There was a question mark as to who the Cardinals were going to take there. Was it going to be a corner? Was it going to be Najee Harris? Was it going to be a wide receiver? We had no idea. Didn't really think it was going to be an inside linebacker until 2 days before the draft, when all of the mock drafts pivoted towards Zaven Collins. Bo, Zaven Collins next to Isaiah Simmons. What are your expectations for him come week 1 through week 17 of the 2021 season?
They're very high. I mean, you look at Patrick Queen's season last year for the Baltimore Ravens. You look at the guy who just got paid, secured the bag yesterday for the San Francisco 49ers. You're getting Zaven Collins, who's taking on just an incredible role year one, right out of the gates, just like Fred Warner did for the San Francisco 49ers. Now, he was a third-round pick out of BYU, but right out of the gates, he had 124 total tackles. He had a pick. He had a sack. He had 6 passes defensed, and that's got to be the expectation for Zaven Collins. If you're going to take him 16th overall, if you're going to take your second consecutive inside linebacker and you're going to start him at Mike and you're going to make sure that you don't have the same, make the same mistake that you did with Isaiah Simmons the previous season. If he's going to get all that hay, all those snaps, then I think then he's going to have a pretty big season. He's going to have to make an impact, and he's going to have to pick up kind of where we lost a little bit with Jordan Hicks slowing down because of good old father time. You got to see if Zaven Collins can pick up the slack. I'm thinking 2021, all rookie team, 100 combined tackles, got to have a pick, got to have a couple sacks, got to have a bunch of passes defense, because that's what, pre-draft people were talking about was his coverage ability. And this day and age, that's so important, and it's going to be really important for this Arizona Cardinals defense. Huge, high expectations for Zaven.
Yeah, and I mean, on compounding all of this was Steve Keim's idiotic, reclamation or proclamation that he was starting week 1. He'd played under 100 snaps at inside linebacker in college, and Steve Keim came out and said, 6 weeks ago, 2 months ago, Zaven Collins is a starter. Jordan Hicks, you can seek a trade elsewhere. So there's added just pressure on the kid to perform. 6'4", 260. I mean, I have nightmares of watching the back of the 48 jersey get outrun by wide receivers, get outrun by running backs with Isaiah Simmons. Zaven Collins isn't the fastest dude. Isaiah Simmons run a sub 4.40, but it's different speed when you're in coverage, and you're right. I mean, I think I want to see Zaven Collins just have pressure on the opposing quarterback. I understand the coverage thing, but if they're going to have the pass rush be as good, mirroring what it was last year, even though it's going to look completely different, with Chandler Jones and J.J. Watt garnering attention from opposing offensive lines, there is going to be time for Zaven Collins and Isaiah Simmons to eat. And I want to see what Zaven Collins can do while rushing the passer also, because that's going to be such an integral part. It's going to be such an integral part of this defense, because it's going to mask the inability to have even a C+ cornerback room. So I'm looking more for sack total. I know he's a linebacker. I know the sack totals aren't going to be that high. I'm looking at 6 or 7 sacks for him. And the tackles, obviously. Jordan Hicks came in immediately, and you're like, wow, this dude can tackle. He was leading the league in tackles. He was towards the top of his first year with the Cardinals. And yeah, replicating that from Zaven Collins is going to be a necessity this year.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you get a guy at just a level below Budda Baker, who's just as sure of a tackler as Budda Baker is at the safety position, or like you're saying with Jordan Hicks, that's so important to have. And it's just, as far as this defense is concerned, and I know like that Vance Joseph likes to dial up the exotic blitzes and he likes cover zero, but with that, if you can just do the basics like tackling, if you can slow down and cut off angles for these explosive playmakers that you're going to face in 2021 or just across the NFL in 2021 modern day football, that it just makes it a lot easier. And then you can kind of tack on. Then you can let guys like Chandler Jones, J.J. Watt do what they do best and get after the quarterback. That's where I think that those guys, that should be their department. Zaven Collins, if he gets a couple sacks here and there, that's fine. That's just, that's icing on the cake. But if he can be just a great tackler, and if he can excel as far as coverage skills at the linebacker position, that's all I want him to focus on this year. And of course, this is like and you probably don't know this, what I'm going to say, but have you ever seen the show, the morning show with Jennifer Aniston, Steve Carell?
No,
it was on Apple TV. It was one of the first things I binged during the pandemic, but
interesting choice.
She basically calls her shot, like during a big old event, and on TV, she names her co-anchor. And so the network can't do anything. That's what Steve Keim did. He basically forced the hand of Cliff Kingsbury and Vance Joseph. It's like, okay, well, I said back right after we drafted Zaven Collins that he's going to be the starting Mike linebacker. What happened to that plan? That's on you guys now. I think that he kind of, put them in a tough position, but I like it because I was frustrated with how they utilized Isaiah Simmons last year, 35% of the snaps. We're not going to see that with Zaven Collins.
Right, and that was the icing on the cake that I missed. Over 50% of the snaps, something very low. Just something we need to see. We need to see it. And all the pressure's on Steve Keim. And we're going to talk about Marco Wilson and Tay Gowan next segment. We talked about this long, and I want to put a button on it here. Either it's going to be great or it's going to be Armageddon. And it starts with the 16th overall pick. I mean, Steve Keim, we've never seen an inside linebacker duo as tall as Zaven Collins and Isaiah Simmons. Ever. We haven't seen it. And you know why? Because it usually doesn't work. And Steve Keim's like, you know what? I'm the smartest man in the room. I'm going to do what I want. This is my car. I'm taking my blanket and leaving. I'm going to do it my way. Okay, you're doing it your way. You could potentially get fired if it doesn't work. Alex Clancy, Bo Brack, Locked on Cardinals. Coming up next, Rondell Moore, Tay Gowan, Marco Wilson. Is it fair to group those two together because of the lackluster cornerback room? I think Bo and I both think it is. All that and more next, Locked on Cardinals. First, rockauto.com. I need new taillights. It's a true story. I work from home now, so I've been procrastinating, but rockauto.com has got me covered. I can work. We can do the podcast. I can be on rockauto.com right now. I don't have to go to a chain storefront. I don't have to ask the person up front all these questions that I don't know the answer to because I don't know where anything is. rockauto.com is a family-owned business. They've been online for 20 years. Their prices are reliably low. You get the same price for manufacturers and do-it-yourselfers. There's no upcharge if you're not a manufacturer, which is awesome. Everything you need is a click away at rockauto.com. Go to rockauto.com. Right, locked on in there. How did you hear about us box so they know we sent you? Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. rockauto.com. It's exciting times here in Arizona. We're not celebrating yet. As I mentioned, Alex Clancy, Bo Brack, Locked on Cardinals. We're giving a Phoenix Suns moratorium, allowing the fans to kind of breathe, take in what Giannis did to them before we pivot to the Arizona Cardinals. Can you get really quick?
Yeah.
Who was that guy at the free throw line wearing 34 for the Milwaukee Bucks? Like, everybody's saying he's the greatest player in the world now. The only thing that changed was he made every single free throw. I think he missed one free throw, which is one of the most random occurrences from a 63% free throw shooter in crunch time. I know it was at home, but sweet mother, where did that come from?
Yeah, I don't know, whoever the sports psychologist or whoever was in his head and got him right throughout the entire postseason. I mean, we're talking about a guy who couldn't even hoist a shot. As you mentioned, in the 60% as far as shooting, and he's sitting there taking longer than 10 seconds at the line. He's like, what are you waiting for? You're not that great if you're not going to knock him down. And then he was money in the bank. I mean, that was kind of what decided things, his ability to knock down shots at the charity stripe, because he's so big. You're in foul trouble. Like, you just can't avoid making contact with him, and him, putting away free ones, huge for the Bucks. And yeah, it's rest in peace, 2020, 2021 Suns. It was a fun run, and now they got to figure out how to run it back.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. I mean, him making those free throws is like Bo doing 5 solid podcasts in a row. Just does not happen. Okay, wow. So Rondale Moore, second-round pick, all eyes on him from 2018 Rondale Moore, who broke all the freshman records in college, and then he was pretty much injured the next 2 seasons. Bo, and we're going to do our throwdown Thursday. Who needs to have the biggest impact? Spoiler alert, mine is Rondale Moore. For Rondale Moore, I looked at your numbers, and I want you to tell everybody what they are. I think you're airing very low here. I'm curious to hear what you have to say.
Conservative? Yeah, I think I aired on the side of conservative. I said 40 catches, 600 yards, 3 touchdowns. But it's I think that DeAndre Hopkins, it's crazy enough to think that he can have bigger numbers, larger amount of targets. And then you've got AJ Green, you've got Christian Kirk, you've got one football, along with, Kyler Murray touches as far as rushes, and then, of course, Chase Edmonds and James Conner. I just don't know if there's enough plays in the playbook to get him over, 40, maybe 50 catches. But look, if maybe I'll take quality over quantity. And also I put in there, I'd love to see him return some punts. I think that would be huge. Get in there, get acclimated, just immediately get the ball in your hands and get some space. And certainly returning punts, he can do that.
Now, I took a different approach here. I'm taking quantity over quality, because that means that he's getting utilized in the offense somehow. Just somehow. Christian Kirk disappears, and it's not all his fault. It really isn't. It is play calling. It is putting your players in an opportunistic position, so where you can expose, their talents. This isn't going to be an Andy Isabella situation. If it is, Cliff Kingsbury's getting fired. Things need to change. And Rondale Moore is going to be the lab rat's the wrong connotation. He's going to be the new age of this offense, in my opinion. I'm looking at
Harvin, please.
Sorry?
I think if they utilize Percy Harvin, that would be amazing.
Exactly. It doesn't have to be like, I know we knock Shanahan a lot, and rightfully so. Use him like Brandon Ayuk. I get that. That's the new age. That's what we saw last year. Not as many end arounds, but a lot of behind the line of scrimmage stuff. Brandon Ayuk can fly. So with Rondale Moore, my number is this: 68 catches. That's 4 catches a game. 4 catches a game isn't a lot. And if you can get him 5 or 6 targets a game, because there's going to be 17 targets to go around. AJ Green may get 7 or 8. Christian Kirk maybe, running backs. If you can get the kid 5 targets, that means he's being utilized in some capacity in the offense. And I'm good with that. I will take quantity over quality, at least his rookie season, to show us that Cliff Kingsbury knows kind of how to utilize a rookie with his freakish talents.
And I just hope, you're projecting that 17 games. You hope that Rondale Moore, who hasn't been healthy the last couple seasons, he's young. I'm not going to label him as an injury risk or a guy that's he can't stay healthy, because he's too young. You had the pandemic year and stuff like that. So I'm not going to say he's Nick Bosa as far as his inability to stay on the playing field. But I think that you have to consider, can he play the full season, especially his first year out of the gates? That'd be great for the Cardinals. No doubt about it. And I don't think you're unrealistic either. I think 68 is certainly attainable. And you're not, Justin Jefferson set the bar. You're not going to say, hey, right out of the gates it's going to be Justin Jefferson. But I think that he's also not going to be a guy that's going to be Andy Isabella. Steve Keim and Cliff Kingsbury know that they just can't have another guy. You can't have another Hakeem Butler or Andy Isabella. They've got to be able to, in some capacity, force feed him the ball to show that he's not going to be a bust like those two guys were.
Sure, absolutely. And the interesting comp to Percy Harvin is Percy Harvin was injured 80% of his career.
Yeah,
so,
true.
When he's on the field, it's like, do you want an A player who plays 9 games or a B- player who plays 17? It's that old adage. You just take, I don't know. There's perks and downsides to both. Marco Wilson and Tay Gowan, the boys. So we had Marco Wilson on last week, and I asked them, they're both Florida guys, and they didn't know it, but they shared a coach or a trainer. They shared an assistant coach, I think. So Marco Wilson had a coach that went to UCF that ended up coaching Tay Gowan, and the coach would always say, hey, be more like Marco Wilson. I don't know how true that is, but there is a link there between the two. We're grouping these guys for the year, right?
Yeah, no doubt about it.
Just because they're 4th and 5th round picks or 4th and 6th round pick respectively, but also because pundits across the landscape of draft boards said both of these guys should have been taken higher, especially Tay Gowan, because he was removed from the game for long enough to where people kind of forgot, and then now it's like, wow, I cannot believe he dropped that far. Hopefully it bears fruits for the Cardinals.
Right. I think the biggest question about Marco Wilson was between his ears. And you and I talking to him, I was very encouraged.
Yeah,
he's got
humble kid.
Mindset. Yeah, humble. He's playing the game right as far as talking to the media and trying to get himself out there. And I think he's probably learned a lot from that infamous mistake that he did where he threw the shoe. He went all Austin Powers on it and throws a shoe in a huge game, huge moment. That cost this team dearly as far as the Florida Gators against LSU. But Marco Wilson has the tools. He's our guy Jake Lisco called him a tool shed, and he's absolutely right. You look at the numbers from his pro day, absolutely absurd. And then Tay Gowan, I still see video of Tay Gowan working out, or if you see tape of him playing at UCF, and you're just like, how did this guy slip to the 6th round? It doesn't make sense. And if one of those guys, if it can become a work share, where they approach 50% of the snaps, if they can supplement the veterans, and when there's more cornerbacks on the field and some of the defense, nickel, dime, whatever it may be, and those guys aren't liabilities, I think that's going to be huge. And if one of them can turn into Justin Bethel, now I'm not saying Justin Bethel like they're going to be, because Justin Bethel was special on special teams. If one of them can play that kind of a gunner and just make some plays on teams, that would be huge for this roster as well.
Yeah, and you hope that one of these guys could actually be the next Patrick Peterson and not just what BA said. And then BA held nothing back when it came to Justin Bethel, especially on the defensive side of the ball when he wasn't an all-pro special teamer. I agree. I'm going to stick
roller coaster, man. I've never seen. He said that Justin Bethel at one point with Patrick Peterson and Tyrann Mathieu on the roster was the best corner on the roster, and then he said he was a failure in progress.
Yeah, that's right. That was it.
Emotional roller coaster.
Wow. I'm thinking, so with Zaven Collins, I said 50% of the snaps. Collectively, between the two of them, if we could see 50% of the snaps this year, that's a 4th and a 6th round pick. What happens to teams that win is they get lucky in the later rounds. Every so often. The Cardinals haven't gotten lucky at all. Across the board. DJ Humphrey's fine. Budda Baker traded up, good pick. So that's not lucky. They moved up to get a guy and it worked. You have to be able to catch lightning in a bottle with all of these talented guys to play college football. There are thousands of guys, and one wearing a Cardinals uniform in the 4th and or 6th round pick, it could be a game changer. We've just been devoid of that pretty much in perpetuity. Haven't gotten lucky. So if we can get lucky and one of those two can pop, if not both, if both come in and are serviceable guys, B- corners, the defense changes completely.
Yeah.
We are going to do a deeper dive into the later rounds a little bit tomorrow. It's Throwdown Thursday time. Who needs to have the biggest impact? Who needs to have the biggest impact out of the rookie class for the Arizona Cardinals come 2021 to up that win total? Bo and I disagree. Shocker. That's coming up next. But first, Bo has something to talk about.
Did you know that there's odds already on the Hall of Fame game? There's already odds on the Arizona Cardinals preseason opener. So Dallas Cowboys, you can bet against the boys already twice as far as the preseason is concerned. Cowboys 1-point dogs against the Steelers in Canton. You want action? You just want to be silly? You just want to be reckless as far as your money is concerned? Well, let me tell you. I mean, the fastest, easiest, safest way to bet is bet online. Baseball season also in full swing. You can check out all the lines right now at Bet Online. You can get some action. You can kind of fill the void until football season kicks off. But right now you can look at the the San Francisco Giants, LA Dodgers. That's a great series. Big win for the Giants last night. They're 1.5-run dogs. If you like any of that action, go to Bet Online. You can also get all the news, odds, info, as well as sign-up bonuses and contest information. BetOnline.ag. Don't sit on the sidelines anymore. I mentioned sign-up bonuses. Right now, if you go on your mobile device, if you go to the website on your computer, you can receive a 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. That means if you put in $50, you'll get $25 free to play around with. BetOnline. It's your online sportsbook experts.
Final segment, Locked on Cardinals. Alex Clancy, Bo Brack. Follow him at Bo Brack. Follow me at Clancy's Corner. Follow the podcast at Locked on AZ Cards. Please go subscribe to YouTube. Just broke 200 subscribers in about 6 weeks, which is pretty good. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it. Listen to us, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play. I actually have an Alexa, and I listened to our most recent podcast on Alexa last night. No joke. But you just have to say Locked on Arizona Cardinals because, listen, we are rising up here, but the number one Cardinals is going to be the St. Louis Cardinals. So search Locked on Arizona Cardinals, not Locked on Cardinals, to avoid any sort of confusion. We don't make the media rules regarding popularity. So that's it. Okay, throw it on Thursday. Bo, who needs to have the biggest impact? Who needs to have the biggest impact out of the 2021 rookie class for the Arizona Cardinals in an effort to raise the floor and get some more W's this season?
No doubt about it. Number one pick for the Arizona Cardinals, Zaven Collins, the linebacker out of Tulsa. It would help not only the team win games on the field, it would help Steve Keim and his credibility as a general manager across the NFL, taking a guy out of a non-Power 5 conference, a guy that barely played last season, but has the skills to make an impact early on. It's going to be huge if this linebacking core, Zaven Collins and Isaiah Simmons, can, obviously just impact each and every snap out there for the Arizona Cardinals, especially when you look at this division and you've got the quarterbacks and you've got the wide receivers and tight ends that you have to face each and every week. Zaven Collins and his ability to not only, tackle, but also cover is going to be huge for this team. And it's not even close. Like everybody else, Rondale Moore, Tate Gowan, Marco Wilson, whoever it may be from this draft class, it would be nice if they had a decent season or made an impact, but it's a necessity that Zaven Collins has a huge year for the Arizona Cardinals right out of the gates, because it would back up the reason for them to maybe take a position that's not necessarily popular or deemed as important enough for the Arizona Cardinals to take that inside linebacker spot again. But Zaven Collins has to prove all the doubters wrong, and it would certainly help the Arizona Cardinals be successful if he has a big year.
You remember in the movie Old School where Will Ferrell won the debate and James Carville just said, we've got nothing. That was perfect. You're going to say that after what I'm about to say, because I understand your point.
I blacked out from my response.
I understand your point. No, I'm Will Ferrell. I understand your point, but I've been saying, and I'll continue to say, that the strength of this team has to be the offense. Otherwise, what the hell are we doing here? Why is Cliff Kingsbury here if we're relying on the defense to keep the team in games? The answer is Rondale Moore, and I'm going to tell you why. Vance Joseph made Shangri-La out of hell last year. when Chandler Jones went down regarding the blitz packages and the rushing the passer schemes that he put together. It was the movie Rockstar. I always go back to this Mark Wahlberg movie. Mark Wahlberg's a super fan. He goes to see this band. The lead singer of the band doesn't want to do it anymore. Mark Wahlberg takes over as the lead singer of the band. And at the end of the movie, some guy just like Mark Wahlberg in the beginning of the movie takes over for Mark Wahlberg. That's what it was last year for rushing the passer. Doesn't matter who it was. Vance Joseph made it work. Vance Joseph can cover up blemishes better than Cliff Kingsbury can. The gaping hole of this team on the offense is the wide receiver room. And sure, I love AJ Green, and I think he's going to do much better than people think he will this year. Not a homer take. I've just seen AJ Green, and I know what he can do still. If they can utilize Rondale Moore correctly, Rondale Moore could be the breakout receiver of this draft. You have Rashad Bateman. You have other guys that flashed more recently because Rondale Moore has been injured over the last couple of years. But the dude has the skill set, if used correctly, to break the hell out. And he would be the guy that needs to break out. Needs to get W's, to be Kyler Murray's number 2. You would love AJ Green to be the number 3, just de facto, because Rondale Moore took that wide receiver 2 spot and didn't give it up. That's why focal point of the offense is going to be the passing game, and Rondale Moore needs to be the breakout star from 1 to 53 because of that. If the offense isn't the strength, what the hell are we doing here?
There's a couple different things there. I mean, obviously, I am kind of shocked that we're talking about VJ the way that we do now, because at this point last year, we were like,
insane.
Man, Vance Joseph, we thought he was probably going to be out the door by week 4.
Scapegoat, right? Yeah.
But I think that a guy like Cliff Kingsbury he can have a Vance Joseph type comeback tour this year because of the guys you mentioned. Like, that's why I feel like Zaven Collins, it's so important for him to be the breakout star of this draft class of these first year players, because there is nobody else. As far as name the other inside linebacker, name the other Mike linebacker, it's Jordan Hicks, and he's long in the tooth. We saw that he was carrying a refrigerator on his back last year, so that's your other option, and he wants out of town. So Zaven Collins is really your only option. You mentioned AJ Green. You mentioned Christian Kirk. I mean, there's other guys who have talent on this offense, and I'll still believe this, and I'm going to maintain this, that Kyler Murray and DeAndre Hopkins are so talented that even with a pedestrian supporting cast, they can be special. So you don't need Rondale Moore. If you get Rondale Moore and he has a good season, that's great. But it's a necessity that Zaven Collins has a breakout season.
I wasn't listening. Alex Clancy, Bo Brack, Locked On Cardinals. Another successful Throwdown Thursday. Johnny Venerable from Revenge of the Birds is going to join us tomorrow. As you can see, we're posting the podcast on podcast platforms at around the same time, 11 a.m. local, but we're posting the video portion of it 5 p.m. every day on YouTube. We're just trying things out. People get home from work, you can watch instead of, wanting to fall asleep at work because you're watching Bo and he's saying nothing of importance. Alex Clancy, Bo Brack, Locked On Cardinals. We'll talk to you tomorrow.